Good afternoon, Brian.
Good afternoon, Hong.
Welcome to Vietnam.
Nice to see you
How are
again.
you?
Yeah, I'm
Very
great.
good.
Great.
Yeah,
great.
I know you because of my former boss, Dr. Jimmy Smith,
Yeah,
former Director General of International Livestock Research Institute.
Yeah, Jimmy and I were colleagues at the World Bank
Yes.
for many years. Yeah.
Yes. And after that, he went to Nairobi
Yep.
to lead INRI.
Correct.
And actually, he brought me from Hanoi to Nairobi for the
Yeah.
last 5 years.
Smart guy.
Yeah, and he retired. And yes, that's why we knew each other. Okay, so Brian, you are the Director of Food Safety and Animal Health of Illinois International in
Correct.
Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And you are here because you have a lot of activities in my own country on food safety and many other things. But I let you introduce yourself because that is exactly the ways that you can provide precise information about you. Tell us a little bit about you, please.
Well, boy, I'm not a young man, so I have a long background of. I'm a Canadian veterinary epidemiologist by profession, but I have a long career of working in Africa and Southeast Asia and China, living in those countries and working there. So I started my career in Africa and Malawi for a number of years. I was there for 6 years,
Really?
doing animal
So
health.
that was with Woonbang already or not?
No, that was working for Canadian government.
Okay.
I was doing development projects there, what was called CETA in those days.
Yeah.
And then I moved on to Indonesia. I was there doing disease information and disease investigation centers. So we built 3 laboratories in Indonesia. And so I was the epidemiologist and project manager there. And then I moved on from there to China, where we did projects on pork, on dairy, on the feed industry, and a number of other areas. So, and then from there I moved on to the World Bank, where I was director of the Global Food Safety Partnership, the One Health program at the World Bank, and other projects working around the world as well. And then following that, I ended up again still in the United States. I was the executive director at the Grocery Manufacturers Association, doing food safety and training in the U.S. and other countries around the world. And now I'm at, and I have been for the last 5 or 6 years at Alinea International, based in Ottawa, in Canada.
Yeah. So what is the background to do all these things for many years in different organizations?
What's the background?
Yeah.
Well, I've always had an interest in international development. So, and this is a way, you can take these development programs from a very technical perspective or from a people perspective. So I see when we do these work, whether it's animal health or food safety, how does that impact people? How are people involved? Because at the end of the day, whether it's food safety or animal health, and on the animal health side, most of my work has been around One Health. So how does animal diseases impact on people? So for me, my interest in development work is really around how does it affect communities? How does it affect people? And I think we can talk a little bit about the community level implementation of these programs later, but I think that's an important aspect.
We will touch that.
Yeah.
And because of that, of course, apart from my former boss, Jimmy Smith, also another person that I know very well, and it's John McDermott.
Oh, yeah.
And also, David Wintertil, the eco-health gentleman from Canada. So it looked like that you studied with them, or you worked with them during that time.
John and I were actually classmates as undergraduates. And we've kept in touch over the years because we're both veterinary epidemiologists, as is David Waltner-Taves. I've kept in touch with John and during his career and likewise, and we've worked in similar places as well. And David Waltner-Taves, actually, the work I did in Indonesia was following him. He had been in Indonesia first.
Oh, really?
And then he left, and I took over the position he had there. So, and we're friends as well. We know each other quite well. So
yeah, because I know his time in Nepal, but I didn't know that he was in Indonesia before you was
Yeah,
there.
yeah, he lived in Indonesia with his family there for I think 2 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Jimmy, David, and John, if you look or you watch this video afterwards, greeting from Brian and me from Hanoi. We are here. Very nice view from Hanoi here.
Hi there, guys. Nice to see you. Well, I haven't seen you, but welcome.
You keep in touch with them on and off, right? Okay. Now, back to your stay here. I know that you are here for a food safety project funded by Canada, SafeGRO. And before you tell us a bit more about this project, I have to tell you that, you know, the phase one of that project, or whatever in the past, the project before SafeGRO, you know, they work with different universities and so on. I was aware of that. And when that project ended, there was a discussion on the phase two of that food safety quality project funded by Canada. And I was invited together with Dr. Thiang. Thiang, at that time, I think he was already Vice Director of Vietnam Academy of Agricultural Sciences, to join the design mission composed by different people from Canada to design this SafeGRO project. And afterwards, you know, the project was approved, and it looked like that, and also company won the bid to implement this SafeGRO project. So Brian, can you please tell us what is SafeGRO about, and what was or has been the work that you and your team have been doing here in Vietnam to help Vietnam to improve food safety, obviously.
Okay, well, that's a long conversation, but I'll try to make it short and sweet. So yes, you're correct. There was a first project that was funded by Canada, and then they looked at how they would move into it, the next. We don't look at this as a second phase of that project. We see this as a standalone project, and that's because the work, and you may be familiar with the work that was done by the World Bank in Canada and others, where they did a study on the challenges and opportunities around food safety in Vietnam. And
actually, you know, we wrote that report together with the World Bank.
Yeah.
2017, we published the report.
Exactly, that's the word.
Yeah.
That set the scene for this project, to develop this project in terms of, you know, how do we move towards a modernizing the food safety management and control system in Vietnam, and in terms of looking at a more effective way to deal with the food safety risks that are quite prominent here, or have been in Vietnam. So the project was designed, and you were involved in the design of the project, as I recall, as were others. And then Alini International got involved. We were bid on the project and won the project. And we have had quite a bit of experience in this area in agriculture, formerly Agri-Team Canada.
So you changed the name, the company has
the company changed the name. So we took this on, and the SafeGRO project, to me, when I look at the project personally, it sort of brings together everything in my career, and it was extremely well designed in terms of the scope of work, the components of the project, the way it was put together. An extremely complex project. That's part of the problem. If we look at problems, one of the issues, because it covers so much. It covers from farm right to table. And
in Vietnam, we go from farm to chopstick.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, absolutely. So it's sort of supply chain driven, but it's sort of, if you look at the three components in terms of the regulatory framework, or the enabling environment, we call it, and we're doing a lot of work in that space. In the operational side, the supply chain, what happens at the farm level, in the processors, we're working in schools and other areas. And then the whole area, the third area around communication and food safety culture. Because this only works if there's a mindset around food safety at all levels throughout the country, in terms of whether you're on the farm, people are taking personal responsibility in food processing. So most of the food culture, for example, in internationally is looked at from the food processing perspective. Like, I was on the working group at the Global Food Safety Initiative. They have a guidance on food safety culture, but it's very
much for the, you know,
processing and that food manufacturing. My perspective, my view is that food safety culture should be more encompassing. The regulators and inspectors in the government, when they're doing their work around food safety, they should have a culture of food safety in their day-to-day work, taking personal responsibility. Likewise, the people working in the school kitchens, you know, from at all levels of food production, at the farm level right through to processing and the service industry, should all have a mindset of food safety culture, taking personal responsibility, and that's the only way this works. You can have regulations and rules and laws and decrees and circulars, but they're just on paper unless somebody actually implements them.
So, but Brian, you know, food safety culture, you know, that I mean, as someone working in food safety for many years for International Livestock Research Institute, I often attend the international annual meeting of an International Food Protection Association in the US. Sometimes they organize in Canada as well. Huge conference, 5,000 people. and they always have a session on food safety culture, and I agree with you. Most of the guys coming there, they talked about processing, areas and food safety culture. What is the challenge? Because in Vietnam, I think that food safety culture is there, but it has not really received a lot of attention. I have to say that until recently, and I would say that also, SafeGRO did a lot of communication around food safety culture. But even in the US and Europe, they talk more about processing. You are about to expand this food safety culture to many other things. So do you think that is a good way of doing food safety culture in Vietnam, or communicating it in country like Vietnam?
So if you, to the example that you've laid out there on food safety culture in the food manufacturing and processing area. So I was involved with the Grocery Manufacturers Association for a number of years, through which we promoted food safety culture in the food industry in the US and elsewhere, right? And one of the Lone Jespersen, who many people know, she's sort of one of the leading international gurus around food safety in that area. And even if you look at the GFSA guidance, which she took the lead on helping to write, the elements that drive food safety culture are the leadership. So if you're in a company or an organization, the person at the top has to drive food safety culture, the CEO almost. If it's not driven at the highest level, it doesn't work. The second part of that, I believe, is that throughout the organization, individuals have to take responsibility in their day-to-day work, so that they're responsible. If they're handling food, they know that they're washing their hands, they know they're being hygienic handling, they know that they're handling the product carefully. So for me, if you take food safety culture out of the manufacturing aspect and you put it in the broader context of Vietnam, for example, the same thing holds true. The CEO have to take responsibility. So does the vice minister or the director general or somebody in the government take responsibility and drive food safety culture? And that's what we're trying to do. And we see that now. The senior managers and directors and government people are talking food safety culture. So they're pushing it. But then at the other end, what we're trying to do is get people through the work we're doing to understand what means food safety, what food safety culture means at the grassroots level, at the community level. That's where I was this morning. I was telling you, I was out in an ancient village in Dong Lam. Dong Lam. So where we're working with a number of the businesses, the restaurants, the local market, the wet market there, to try and instill food safety culture there. Now, that is all driven by the technical aspects of food safety and what you need to do to make sure food is safe, and around cleaning, sanitation, disinfection, all of those things. But essentially, if those things are going to work, people have to take personal responsibility. And to me, that's food safety culture.
So I like that idea, because every year 7th of June we have the World Food Safety Day, and the slogan from WHO, FAO, and many international organizations is that food safety is the business of everyone. You see, and in Vietnamese context, for example, business of women, because women, they are risk manager. They buy food, they prepare food for everyone. So the food safety culture is very important, not only for the business, for the manufacturer side, but it has to be the culture of everyone. And I agree with you that the more the top people is aware of that and takes responsibility of that, it's easier that this system can comply and do good stuff for food safety.
Yeah, the technical elements of food safety are not rocket science. It's getting people to actually do it, right? And how you can get people to do that. And you mentioned women. We have an important aspect of this project is gender responsive food safety, we call it, right? And what we're finding is we're working with the National Women's Union, for example. We have an e-learning platform for food safety and gender. It's a very exciting program that they've adopted. The Women's Union have adopted it.
Yeah.
We've also done some very exciting stuff that we didn't expect, where we trained from the Women's Union from I think then it was about 12 or 15 provinces came together. We showed them about food safety. We taught them AI, taught them how to do video production, and they actually went home then and created these YouTube videos to promote food safety from a gender perspective. Husband and wives working together, families working together to promote food safety in the home. How do you prepare food safely? How do you cook it, chill it, and so on and so forth.
No, this is very nice. Gender is very important. Okay, so what else has food, SafeGRO done so far, apart from what you have said? Have you kind of, listed all the activities?
No, gosh, no. There's a. I wish I could.
That is a big project, yeah.
Well,
I
it's very
remember
big.
when we designed, of course, financially it's something like $15 million or something.
Yeah, it's a
at that
$15
time.
million project,
Yeah.
which is not nearly enough to do the work that needs to be done here, but it's a start. So we've planted some seeds, and we can talk about it from the perspective of, let's say, the regulatory side, for example. We've spent a lot of time on that. We've mapped out all of the food safety decrees, regulation, laws, circulars, decision memos that are laid out there, providing the framework for producing safe food in Vietnam. We have a whole database in English and Vietnamese because what we know in Vietnam, people only do what's in the regulations, right? They're not going to spontaneously do something because it's a good idea if it's not in the regulations.
It depends, but at the moment it's what's happening.
Yeah, it's what happens.
It's a tendency.
We see changes though.
Yeah.
So that's what drives the system. So Vietnam is in the process of drafting a new food safety law, and they asked for our input, which we provided a full comprehensive report for the drafting committee on international food safety practices, how to modernize food safety, and looking at what drives from a regulatory perspective, what drives sort of a risk-informed food safety management and control system. Because that's what we see internationally now, including Canada, but elsewhere, in Europe and elsewhere, it's risk-informed, risk-based they say, but it's more risk-informed, whereas in Vietnam, they're still driven by the end product testing motivation around doing food safety. So if you're going to have a risk-informed system, which is more cost-effective, Vietnam can't afford to be doing end product testing. No country can. If you look at the cost of doing the testing, the resources required. So we've tried to promote that approach and actually building on, the work that you did, building that risk assessment task force.
Yeah.
So we've taken that task force that you originally created through ILRI and consolidated that into a group of risk assessors through what we helped to establish the Vietnam Food Safety Risk Assessment Center in the Ministry of Health under the National Institute of Food Control.
And AFC, yeah?
Yeah, and AFC.
With Dr. Hao and Dr. Sơn, yeah.
So what we have now, and we funded some very targeted risk assessments to demonstrate how you use risk assessment to drive a risk-informed system. So that's in the process now.
So it's very good. So Brian, I'm very happy that some of the work that we have done or we did in early 2010, I think 2010, that now supported and institutionalized. That was actually our idea from the beginning. We could not really formalize it at that time, but I'm very glad that SafeGRO support to make this happen. And actually, you mentioned the food safety law, and actually, at that time, Vietnam have this first time the food safety law, and actually this law in 2010. And actually, I remember that Professor Nguyễn Công Khánh, the DG of VFA, Vietnam Food Administration, at that time emphasized very much the risk-based approach. You touched a bit already there, but can you come back a little bit? Of course, to explain to more general public to understand what is the risk-based approach, and in the context of Vietnam. I know that you come from Canada. We can come back to the work of CFII, AI, but how to explain people in a very simple way what is the risk-based approach is and how to use the risk-based approach to manage the food safety in Vietnamese context.
It can be very complicated or very simple. So, and I take the example, we had a conference last week actually in Da Nang where we were helping to inform people around how this approach works. And one of the women from the Ministry of Industry and Trade who has to do food safety management in Vietnam came to us and said, I don't have the money, I don't have the resources to do all the product testing I have to do. I'm responsible for testing all of the starch in the country. Can you imagine?
No one can do that, even in Canada.
No, well, exactly. So we don't do that.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do end product testing, it requires you to do sampling across the board for all the producers of starch, right? And a single one test, depending on what you're testing for, costs up to 500,000 dong, which is about $25 per test. no budget, government budget has the budget to do that or the people to go out and do that. So if you can't do end product testing, use a risk-based approach. And I'll explain a little bit how we do that in Canada, where the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, which is a single food safety agency, which we're trying to promote in Vietnam also, all food companies across Canada, if you sell across Canada or you export, have to be registered. And each company has to submit what's called a preventive control plan. So it's a risk profile for each company. So now you know what the food safety risk is in that particular company. And if you take them all together, maybe you've got, let's say in that particular sector, you have 1,000 companies, right? Not all of them are high risk. Some are very low risk. If they haven't, it depends on the commodity, the way they process it. Have they had any non-compliance reports in the last 5 years? Have they had any food safety incidents? If they haven't, they're low risk. So what you do is you focus your inspection on the small group of high risk companies or farms, which could be 3 to 5%. In Canada, what we're finding, that's what it is, 3 to 5%. So instead of having to test everything, you focus your inspection on the high risk, but you also, you do spot checking of the others as well, right? But you don't have to be covering everything then. I don't know if that explains it or not, if that helps.
No, of course, I understand, but it's important that you say that because, when, non-specialist people, they listen to us, they understand. And because, I agree with you, it's not rocket science, and people sometimes hear about risk-based approach, and of course, we need specialists to do risk assessment.
Well, that's the other part. The other part is people take risk assessment too lightly. Risk assessment is a very specialized skill. In Canada, let me ask you, how many risk assessors do you think we have in Canada? How many food safety risk assessors that you think we have in Canada that the government would rely on to do a food safety risk assessment?
I don't know, about 100 or even less?
Between 15 and 20.
Okay, only?
That's it. Because it's such a specialized skill. And that's the thing that we're trying to show here in Vietnam is you don't need 1,000 risk assessors. You need to have good risk assessors and a core group, which is what we're training now under the project. So we have a recognized group of about 25 or 30 risk assessors who are learning quantitative risk assessment and how to do modeling and those skills that are needed to be not only for Vietnam, but to be recognized by your trading partners. Because Canada, the US, Europe, when you're trading and negotiating trade agreements, you need you have to have the risk assessments done, and you have to have them done. Part of the problem with trade negotiations and treaties around the world now is different countries are using different methodologies for risk assessment, so you're getting different results. And it causes problems. So what we're trying to do is share with these risk assessors how we do it in Canada, what the international standards are, and to help Vietnam. And Vietnam has decided to create its own standard for risk assessment.
You see, that is a good idea. I talked about 100 because I thought that you guys in Canada because Canada is not a big country, but I'm surprised that you have about 20 people. But Brian, you see, when I came back to Vietnam and food safety law was released at that time, approved. Of course, I came to knock the door of Ministry of Health and Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development. That March in that time. I talk with people from VFA, I talk with people from Department of Animal Health. Dr. Lun now, he's the DG of Fishery here under the ministry. And actually, I can tell you that at that time, we had training here and there, but I agree with you that, not many people who really have the hand-on experience and know to do in-depth risk assessment. And that actually, is the key message that I think that Vietnam need to train good people, have people who have good capacity. And from that time to now, it's already, I think that in the 15 years, I'm very happy to have more people, to see more people doing things. And I think that's the center of risk assessment that you talked about is a good idea. And I hope that is the way forward, but we still need to do more. So what are the activities of this center that you are supporting? And I want also to join hand to have this effort, to have this capacity strengthened more in the country.
So the model we're using actually is the Risk Assessment Center in China, the China Food Safety Risk Assessment Center, which is very famous. And Canada was involved there as well many years ago. And we actually took the people from here to China to help them share experience. And that's what helped to establish this center under a decree from the Minister of Health, right? So in the center, we're helping them to become recognized as qualified to do international standard risk assessments, and they're getting there, right? They also have training capacity, so we're helping them to develop the training capacity to train inspectors and regulators, which they're responsible to do. We also, I would hope, and one of the things I've talked to the director there, Dr. Sun, was I would see them as a resource center for food safety. Like, for example, where do you go if you need to know something about food safety in Vietnam? It's hard to find. For example, our website now, the SafeGRO website, which is very prominent and has a lot of really good content in it, they're going to take it over. We're handing it over to them. So it doesn't die at the end of the project. It's got a new life under the Food Safety Risk Assessment Center. And, you know, one of the things we'd like to see them do is to identify, one of the problems with risk assessments here is people were doing risk assessments before, they were just ignored because, oh, that's a university professor doing one. There needs to be a risk manager, and I've asked you about this, you know, we talked about this before.
Yeah.
Who's the risk manager? The risk manager that's responsible for food safety, that's responsible, has the authority, the accountability, the responsibility, and the budget to do risk assessments, and then when the results come in, to turn that into risk management programs, right? And that's the struggle here in Vietnam, to identify who the risk managers are.
And the independence, between, you know, the risk assessor and risk managers is also very important topics. And actually, I heard that people from Schön Center also go to visit BFR in Germany.
Yeah, we sent them there for training. Yeah. The project paid for them to go there for training.
And that is also a good model on risk assessment, because they really separate the risk assessment and the risk management. And only in this way, the scientist or risk assessor can really have a position to say, so that is actually the evidence. I hand over to you and do it, taking into account also other things around.
Yeah.
In France, they have ANSES, it's the same. Yeah. And actually, I think that this center should be one of the kind of, you know, the beginning, like you said, in Vietnam, to do that. So great job. So what is the future of SafeGRO?
Well, SafeGRO ends next year, and we're just going through a process now of trying to capture some of the key lessons learned. Okay, we'd like to leave a legacy behind, and I think we're preparing to do, like the website, for example, that's going to be left behind. It's not going to die. It's going to be there. The Food Safety Risk Assessment Center is there. All the work we've done around communication and risk communication. So we've worked with a number of organizations that, you know, they're not going to do SafeGRO things, but in their own way, they're going to continue to do food safety risk assessments or risk communication. And then we've worked with a number of one of the things that we've done that we're very proud of is we worked, when I was at the World Bank, for example, we contracted the International Union of Food Science and Technology to create an international food safety curriculum. So what we did through this project now, we've taken that curriculum and turned that into courses that have now been embedded in 13 universities in Vietnam. So there's a curriculum, a food safety undergraduate curriculum that is international standards, and we collaborated with the FAO on that. So the FAO is using those materials elsewhere. Yeah. And we also created a food safety certificate program of 5 courses. It's an in-service program for regulators and inspectors in a number of universities and at NIFC as well. So if you do those 5 courses and complete them, and they all cover all aspects of food safety, then you get a certificate from the University of Guelph and whichever university is delivering the program in Vietnam. The other thing that we've done that is sort of the next phase of innovation is e-learning. In Canada and in the US, for example, they have a competency-based framework for e-learning of somewhere around 100 courses that inspectors and regulators do online. Yeah. And they're anywhere from 4 to 6 hours, all the aspects of food safety management and inspection. So CFIA has given all of those courses to Vietnam. We've taken about a dozen of those, translated them, adapted them, and now they're going up on an LMS platform here at NIFC and 4 universities. Okay,
so I would propose that in the next food safety working group in Vietnam, you know, SafeGRO have to be there to actually update the group. So Vietnam have a food safety working group. It was created by development partner, including World Bank, FAO, SIDA, Canada, Embassy at that time, and,
all the donors,
and
all
INRE,
the,
but also many organizations from the government system, University Research Institute. And after 10 years or so, we have integrated it into the Vietnam One Health partnerships. And now actually we have this working group under this One Health framework, and we meet quarterly or so. So I think the next one in December. So I would encourage that you come.
I will
also
arrange
people
that.
come
Love
to update this group, because that is actually a pool of knowledge.
Good
and
idea.
People hear about that, and we can work together. We can promote more the good work of SafeGRO, because big investment, big effort, and that need to be known and applied and taken to scale. So that is really important.
And we're very keen on, we're doing a lot of promotion around this. Is all open source content. We don't own it. Anybody can use it. We put it in 13 universities, but it's all up. It's
both in Vietnamese and English, huh?
Yeah. But obviously, the most important part is the Vietnamese here.
Of course.
And we've translated a lot of manuals, a lot of books, a lot of other things that are all available on the website for anybody to download and use as they see fit. One of the other things we've done in this aspect is school programs. So we've been working with schools in Hanoi. Two aspects. We've been embedding when I was at the GMA in the US, for example, we promoted school programs in 35 states where the curriculum was embedded, the teachers embedded the curriculum in the school around food safety for young people, for children. So we were doing that here in schools in Hanoi to start with. We've developed a model that works. We've shown it works.
Yeah.
Working with teachers to put hands-on, interactive, experiential programming into the curriculum, so kids learn about food safety and take it home, right?
Yeah.
Some of the parents are actually upset because they've told us the kids come home and tell them, you have to wash your hands, you have to clean the fruit, you have to do this. So the kids are driving food safety in the home. And then the second aspect of that is we have because of the school meals in Vietnam are risky, we've had a number of outbreaks of foodborne disease in schools in Vietnam. So we have a school kitchen program. We've upgraded 35 schools around Hanoi with new equipment, train the people in the kitchen how to make safer food, the steps and protocols and standard operating procedures. So that's a package now. Again, it's available on the website that any school kitchen can take it and learn what to do.
No, that's very important. The schools and the industrial zones, canteens, and so. How much have you engaged with private sector for SafeGRO?
So quite a bit around trying to engage with the larger value chains and some of the supermarkets with small, medium companies. That's where our value chain works. So we're trying to promote an approach to food safety management built primarily around a HACCP, around especially in the processing side. So the companies we're working with there, and on VietGap. On farm, right? Now the problem we have, and there was a big article came out about 3 weeks ago that VietGap is not very widely adopted in Vietnam, and that's a problem. So we're trying to work with the government, with others to do that, to try and on-farm food safety, try to promote that more effectively, and then within the processing sector, mainly HACCP-based.
10 years ago, we already know that the VietGap was difficult to scale up. So that is still the case?
It's absolutely the case. And that's a problem that I don't think the government of Vietnam recognizes, how weak implementation. One of the attitudes is, well, it's there, now it's being adopted. It's not. And there are a number of reasons why. If you look at the scope of farming and farm practices in Vietnam, the small producers, that first of all, it's a nuisance. There's nobody demanding it. Like the big supermarkets or the wholesale markets are not demanding VietGap yet, and it costs money, right? And so
when we look at the list of criteria and conditions, it's very complicated and long.
But
not
some
many
of them are
people
doing. Some of them
comply.
Some are where they see a benefit. Some of them are doing it, and the government. We're recommending that the government subsidize. In Canada, for example, if I want to adopt a GFSI certification, there's government subsidies for me to get up to $75,000 in some provinces.
Really?
To do food safety traceability. Like we're doing a lot of work on traceability now as well, in at least 6 supply chains, trying to demonstrate how traceability works. But same problems of traceability. The practical aspects. It costs money, takes time, takes effort. You need additional resources. So Vietnam is committed to doing traceability, but somebody has to do something to ensure that it is adopted.
Okay. So Brian, of course, I let you talk about your work. I have not talked about our work because my position today is to ask you a question. But some of the things you have described, I think that it's very much representing the situation of Vietnam. A lot of things happening in traditional markets, small scale production, etc. Applying on this HACCP and VietGAP, etc. is very challenging. Now you are ending SafeGRO Project after 5 years, right? 5 years or something?
No, we're coming up 6 years.
6 years. A great job. I don't know you will have the continuation of the project or not, but for someone who have extensive international experiences in different countries, going from Africa to Asia and Europe, North America, etc., and this specific project, if you need to pick up a few things that Vietnam have to do to improve food safety in this country, so what would be?
Wow. I think the most important thing is the leadership needs to make a commitment, at the highest level. That's where we see the weakness right now. At the highest level, to not only to adopt a risk-informed food safety management system, but to unify, because right now it's fairly dysfunctional, the food safety management amongst at least 3 ministries. Most places where they have a more effective food safety management system are either one or just 1 or 2 agencies involved. So we see.
So in Canada, it's only one, huh?
Yeah. Well, Health Canada is also involved from a risk assessment perspective, but the Canadian CFIA does food safety in Canada, but they collaborate very closely with Health Canada as well. They're involved as well. So really, it's 2 agencies, but they collaborate very closely. I mean, I have an example. I'm not going to mention any names, but I have an example here where we're looking at doing food safety management in markets, wholesale markets in Vietnam, and we know the Ministry of Agriculture is involved. And I said, well, the Ministry of Industry and Trade is also involved in markets. Why don't we invite 1 or 2 of them from the working group? And the Ministry of Agriculture says, no, we don't do that. That's our responsibility. So that's one of the big things I think needs to happen. Is there needs to be a unification or a more integrated approach to doing food safety management. There needs to be a more realistic perspective on how food safety certification is done here. Consumers across the board do not trust any of the certification in Vietnam. So how do you do that? And that's a very difficult thing to do, but I think it's something that needs to be done. And sort of the third aspect I would say is just awareness raising, risk communication, promoting food safety culture through the media, social media. I mean, it's so powerful now, right? How do you use that more effectively to get people to be thinking about food safety and learn that they need to adopt it, so that consumers are making that choice. I'm going to buy here instead of here because I know that this food there is safe.
Yeah.
I asked my Vietnamese colleagues, how do you know your food is safe? We're just guessing now.
Yeah. And the trust, I think.
Well, the trust.
Okay, that's very interesting because you see, if you look back at the report in 2017, we worked with the World Bank. That was actually the World Bank report. Food safety in Vietnam, a challenge and opportunities you mentioned from the beginning of our talk. And actually, INRI play a crucial role in technical support over there. Some of these things was very, much highlighted in the report. And after almost 10 years, 15 years. So we are talking about the same thing. So I think that the food safety has been all the way a very hot topic in Vietnam. And I agree with you that legal framework, the leadership, support for that, and also the trust among food actors, and also the communication aspect have to be really strengthened in this country. And Vietnam, it's it's a country where we have a lot of good food. And people like you from outside, when you come, you like our food.
Well, yeah,
and you need to make sure that the food is good, but safe.
Yeah, but
not
then if you
chocolate
look,
people.
Vietnam is becoming one of the leading food exporters around the world now. I mean, we look at the trade between
Yeah.
even just Canada and the U.S. So, but the exporters are actually having some problems now, particularly with the exports to China. But for the most part, if they're exporting, the exporters are very aware of food safety. So they get certified with Global Gap or one of the other GFSI certifications. So they're aware of that. But domestically, that hasn't caught on, right? We had a conversation, internal conversations earlier this week saying, well, maybe SafeGRO was just a bit premature for Vietnam. If we did it now, we would see taking off. But I think we've planted some seeds. Hopefully they're going to take root, and that. You look how long it took us in Canada to make that transition. That was not 10 or 15 years. It was more like 25 years. So.
Yeah. But you see, but if the country have a great determination, I think that we can actually speed up a little bit, and it is nice. And I know, I mean, I like very much the ideas how to the food export is so important for agriculture sector in Vietnam. I think that we are in October or something, October now, and I think that Vietnam have exported something like 50 or 60 billion US dollar in agriculture this year. So it's been growing up very quickly, and if we do good stuff for export, and we don't forget the domestic market, because it's for the market of more than 100 million people. We need to have good food, safe food for Vietnamese people. We are having, but we need actually improving more. Brian, it has been a pleasure to catch up and talk with you about our work, because both you and me, food safety is in our heart. We work in different countries. We have started here as well. So I think it's very nice. And when we talked about SafeGRO, of course, three names which Sơn pop up. I don't know, even Vân Sơn from former position at Canada embassy. So she worked in the phase 1 food quality. She worked with us to design this thing. I think she's working somewhere in Vietnam.
UN. She works for the UN now.
One of the UN, UNDP or something. The second Sơn I mentioned is Sơn from the World Bank. He was there at that time, and he worked with me and us about this food safety report in 2017. And now the younger Sơn from NIFC. Leading
he's
the
very
food
effective.
safety center risk assessment. So I think that many Sons contributing to the food safety. So greeting to our friend Sons.
Exactly.
So wish you all the best, and we meet latest at the closing meeting in March. But before I think that we still chat.
That's fun. We need to do some things like we talked about doing this risk ranking, right? Food safety risk ranking is something that Vietnam needs to look at to set the scene for future risk assessment. So there's
few things that is important, but also my wish is also to help Sean and other people to really also publish most of the data we collected in line with risk assessment, because now many information around, but we have not really harmonized and putting together. And this is one of the proposal we designed SafeGRO at that time. Maybe last question, if you compare the proposal of SafeGRO when you won the bid and the work you have been doing until now, there was a lot of variation, or you really try to follow the initial design of the project?
Personally, I think the design of the project was too ambitious. If we were to take a step back, we would do it differently, I think, in terms of the focus. But and I think that's what happened along these projects do. They move along the way. They're flexible. They change. One of the things we've tried to do is be very responsive to the government. So if the government says, well, we really want to do that, not that, then we have to respond to that. So that changes the design of the project a little bit. I would say about 20% of the things that we had planned in the design that we did not do, but then we've added other things in there. And some things that we thought would just be very minor have gotten bigger. So these projects are like that. They're never exactly the way they're designed.
Of course.
So.
And I'm glad that you have that flexibilities, because usually sometimes in some of the country when you design a project, you need to follow, even if it's not very relevant. And this 20%, it's already something good. And the relationship with the government partners has been good in implementing this project.
It's been good, but it's been difficult because of transitions in the government, turnover. Well, you know what it's like.
Of course.
People change in their positions and so on and so forth. And but I think we had some struggles at the beginning. But then the leadership, and this is again leadership, right? If you don't have the leadership, it doesn't work. The vice minister that's been working with us, he's very effective. Vice Minister Nam at keeping things on board. And then the Ministry of Health now is becoming, in the last 2 years, is becoming much more interactive. And then the Ministry of Industry and Trade as well. So yeah, it took time, but now we're into the project and we're getting a lot of requests to do more of what we've been doing.
And also it's very important that the government take over from the project to scan it and do more things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, you know, I mean, Canada cannot be forever to do this kind of thing for Vietnam. But then Vietnam also, we grow, we develop, we have the capacity. We invest also for food safety.
So what we should do through this food safety working group is share with the other donors what we've been doing. The Irish government, for example, has a new project, and they want to know what SafeGRO has been doing. So there's other donors are looking at what they can do, and we should just be saying, we started this. If you want to carry on, please carry on.
And Poon owns the resource and, you know, network and projects to align it to make, you know, bigger impact.
We don't
in
want
Vietnam.
to duplicate and replicate.
Thanks very much for the talk. And, you know, we should do a route here of golf sometime.
In Jimmy's honor. In Jimmy's honor.
You have Long Bien course not far from here. We should plan it for March.
Okay, let's do that.
Thank you very much and travel well.
Thank you.